Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Galen Hair. Galen is the owner of Insurance Claim HQ. He is a property casualty attorney who has helped over 1,700 families rebuild their homes and businesses. While the pandemic created unprecedented challenges for many businesses, Galen took a different approach than most. Rather than focusing solely on his company's financial bottom line, he prioritized the well-being of his employees. Through his unwavering commitment to keeping every member of his team employed, he successfully avoided layoffs and resignations. I'm excited to have him on the show to understand his approach and how that has helped him rapidly grow his business. So, Galen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to talking.
I'm honored to meet you, and I'm honored to hear your story. And first of all, thank you for we talk about this podcast, it's to build a world with better bosses. It's great to meet a better boss, right off out of the gate. And I'm excited to hear your story. So first of all, tell us about Insurance Claim HQ. What does your company do and what makes you unique?
So Insurance Claim HQ is essentially at its core, it's a law firm. We obviously didn't name it the way you name most law firms because we don't operate that way. So we represent people that are victims of a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. They're having issues with their insurance company, and as a result, they're having trouble getting made whole. Our approach is a little more holistic than just going to court. We do those things. We go to court, we try cases, but usually our clients need more than just getting the insurance company to pay. That's a big part of what they need. But there's so much more that goes around that when you're the victim of a natural disaster. So that's why we picked kind of a different name.
Interesting. So if somebody has been through a natural or a man-made disaster and they're struggling to collect from insurance, you're the company to call.
We're probably one of the preeminent ones in the country.
Okay, interesting. Well, and what's interesting is that you have a niche, a very natural niche, and so it's pretty obvious who you serve and who your customer base is. So if anyone's listening in right now and you're in that situation, well, we've introduced you to a guy that can help you out. So that's fantastic. So during the introduction, I mentioned that your approach during the pandemic. A lot of companies had mass layoffs. They shut their business down. They shuttered. It's interesting. As a small business owner myself, we had to make some decisions, and we decided to keep everybody running. But you did as well. And I'm interested to know your approach. So why did you decide to focus on the well-being of your employees instead of the bottom line? It seems like counterintuitive for many business owners.
Oh my gosh. It was, COVID was and everyone has like COVID-itis. They both can't stop talking about it, and they also want to only talk about it. But it was a pretty formative time for us. So at the time, we were housed within a larger law firm that did full service, everything from divorces to just whatever you needed. And we were operating as multiple law firms within a law firm. That's actually, for any non-lawyers out there that think that sounds weird, that's a very typical structure. Lawyers are stubborn and they tend to want things their way, but they also want the convenience of a larger organization. So they tend to set this up. So I was gone. I was actually on vacation when COVID, quote unquote, hit the New Orleans area where I'm living. We were at Disney. And I still remember this because it was our last day at Disney. Everyone had kind of heard, oh, COVID's here, COVID's there. No one was locked down. I think Italy was locked down, maybe Seattle, but no one, lockdowns, layoffs, no one was talking about that. And we go to have breakfast on our last day, and they tell us, just hold on 1 second. Our system's down, or we don't know if we can seat you. And I thought that was so weird. This is Disney, one of the world's largest corporations, is being super sketchy about whether they can sit us down for breakfast. And I can see a few people in there, but not a lot of people, so we leave, we come back. They say, you come back in 15 minutes. They go, yeah, we can seat you now. No problem. We sit down. We're still thinking over breakfast, what in the world happened? We're thinking like computer virus, right? So we RV, Amanda and I RV. So we get in our RV and we start driving home, and she is a professional musician. And over the 10-hour drive home, every single job she had for the next year would cancel on her.
Sure, exactly.
Some would text her, some would call her, some would not tell her and just issue press releases that they were canceling. So it was a very difficult drive. So when I got back to New Orleans, I was not in the best headspace, right? I had just watched my life partner watch her career come crumbling down. And I was like, man, this thing is real. And I'm a Southerner, right? So for us, for some of us, COVID never was real, right? So I'm like, man, this thing is real. Like, and we have to figure this out. So I came back, I went straight to the office and I pulled my team in and said, here's what we're going to do. There's, I see the forest through the trees. At the moment, it's very clear that there's going to be lockdowns. No one was really ordering those yet. Said, go to Best Buy, buy whatever you need to work from home, and just start working from home. I'll be in touch about what the next plan steps are. So everyone went, cleaned out Best Buy. This is before everyone was cleaning them out. And they started working from home. And maybe it was a week later, New Orleans issued a stay-at-home order, right? So that's kind of the backdrop with which we had to deal with COVID, was kind of that knee jerk. I was like, look, this is happening, so let's get ahead of it. And I think 90% of surviving COVID was not being reactive. And that was probably our most reactive moment at all. I don't regret it for a minute, because we bought stuff before prices got jacked up and before you couldn't find things like monitors and keyboards, right? But we got all those things. And from there, we just took an employee first approach. So I made it a non-negotiable that we wouldn't fire anyone, because as far as I was concerned, this thing could end any day, right? So we're not firing people. We're not letting good people go that have been dedicated to us and that we've dedicated and spent. And frankly, it's a dollars and cents issue. Spent time and money training. How much money am I going to save letting a 4-year employee go for what amounted to a 3-month, basically stay at home order? So a quarter of a yearly salary, it would have cost me more than that to find someone that good, and train them up. So we made it a non-negotiable, and every reaction we had to COVID, and we did some crazy things, was based off of that. It's a non-negotiable to get rid of good people over a short-term economic problem.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it tells me a little bit about who you are as a person, who you are as a leader, because I often say that without people, our companies are nothing, right? So without a crew, a ship can't go to sea. And so, but a lot of leaders see people as an expense, especially a small business owner myself, right? I know how much it costs me every 2 weeks when I run payroll, right? It's a significant amount of money. And so how did you see people for their potential and their future value to the company versus the weekly expense to the business? How did you sort that out yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy, right? It's hard to watch money not come in and see money go out at a steady rate. That is very, very difficult. And I'm not suggesting you just put your head down and ignore that as a reality. But if it's a temporary thing and you have a strategic plan, and we did, and in our mind, all that was going to happen is COVID might slow that down by a few months. Also, by the way, gave us a ton of time at home to do things like strategic planning and think, okay, man, I have been stuck on the phone and stuck in depositions and stuck in hearings for day in and day out for the last, at that point, 13 years of my career. And suddenly I don't have those things and I'm home. And all those things I said I would do, I can start to do. I said I would create a new process. I said I would create a new procedure. I said I would find a better software. I now have time to do all those things. So what we did is I said, look, we have the right team. And if you don't have the right team, that's a different discussion, right? But we have the right team. We have the right people. So what we're going to do is not let anyone go if currently in their capacity, they're not being best utilized because we don't have those functions right now. That doesn't mean there's nowhere that they can help. So we shifted people to strategic work if they couldn't be involved in day-to-day work.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And did you find that you made a pivot in your business during that time too? Or did you stay the course? Or did you find things through your strategic work that said, oh, there's an opportunity here that we could possibly exploit in the middle of all this?
So a few, yeah. So we identified a couple of opportunities, which we took, but also strategically that planning and that groundwork we laid would lead to later just explosive growth. I mean, we were 7 people at the time, which for some people is a lot. And for a lot of people is no one. We're over 100 now.
I
And we
love
would
it.
not be over 100, in my opinion, if COVID hadn't happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting. So one of the things that it demonstrates is that you're showing care and empathy towards your employees, and I'm sure through your clients during this crisis. So the question I would have for you is what is empathy, and how should leaders be embracing empathy in the way that they lead their teams, especially during a crisis or things when maybe there's some unknowns out there, like we're heading into potentially a recession right now. So there's unknowns out there. So how does empathy help us through that?
So empathy is so interesting. So there's empathy and there's sympathy. And I think people tend to confuse them, which is really unfortunate because they're not the same. So in my mind, sympathy is a stopping emotion. Sympathy is all, you know, that seems really bad. But right, no empathetic statement has ever had the word but in it. Oh, this terrible thing happened to you, but at least you have this. That's not empathy,
Right,
right?
right.
Fixing problems for people is not empathy. And in my mind, empathy is much more simple than anything else. We have this bad habit as society, but definitely as Americans, of not listening to people, but instead being silent while we
Mm.
wait for our turn to talk.
Oh, yes.
And it's normal, and no one should feel bad or called out for that. It's what we do, it's what we're taught to do. It comes from the pressure of when it's our turn to talk, having to say something smart or right or correct. But you miss the emotion that's behind what the person says. And
Mm.
the conversation you will have with your employee. If an employee comes in to tell you about a personal thing they're going through because they need extra time off, as a boss, we can handle that a few ways. I'm so sorry, Jane, that your mother is sick. Well, but you have a job to do. That's
There's
option
the
one.
but that's the
Yeah, that's
sympathy.
option one. Option two, which sounds good, and almost anyone will give this a grade A because it is a grade A. I'm so sorry, Jane, your mother's going through a rough time. How can we accommodate you?
Mm.
That's that's a great answer. And if every boss gave that answer, the world would instantaneously be a better place. But that's not my approach. My approach is, oh my God, Jane, you must feel really scared right now. Why don't you talk to me about how you're feeling and how you feel with everything going on? And take that 30 minutes to an hour instead of that 5 minutes. And look, if you're busy, I know that's a lot, right? Take that 30 minutes to an hour to let Jane, my teammate, my employee, tell me what she's actually going through and how she's actually feeling. Because ultimately, the accommodation we will work out will actually be responsive to her needs, right? She doesn't just need to hear you can work from home 3 days a week while you deal with doctors. She does need to hear that, and you should be saying that. But you might learn that there's a different stressor in her life because you actually took the time to listen to her. Maybe it's being home and dealing with doctors coming in and out of the house to take care of her mother, but it's also juggling her kids going to soccer practice and school so they can have some kind of a normal
Mm.
semblance of life, right? And these are accommodations that you only learn if you're willing to emotionally connect with your team. So I think that approach of empathy, that's what I consider empathy to be, is actually hearing what's being said and actually listening to them. I think it comes very naturally because we as humans, I don't think I've met an unempathetic person. I've met a person that doesn't listen. We love each other and we care about people. And yes, there are some bad people in the world, but by and large, most people are really good and want a sense of community. And that only happens with a real connection.
Okay, this is some powerful stuff here. So I learned some of those lessons in my time in the Navy, being locked in a submarine for 3 months at a time. The idea of really getting to know your people and having deep relationship with them, and I took that through my business world into my time in corporate and then as an entrepreneur. Where did you come up with this? Where did this come from? Because this tells me you have a way of leadership that puts people first, and that you treat people as people, and you're willing to open up and have a deep relationship with the people that work for you. Where does that come from? Where did that come from? I'm curious.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've been very fortunate to have mentors throughout my life that care and genuinely care and have many have gotten nothing in return or asked for anything in return. So I've always invested in those people and the lessons that they've taught me. I will say, as a lawyer, there's actually a fantastic group that focuses on empathy as it relates to trial advocacy. And for reasons that probably sound obvious, I really latched on to that when I discovered them. But yeah, I mean, maybe one too many times as a child, not feeling listened to when I'm trying to
Yeah,
express what
yeah.
I'm upset about, and adults are solving the problem for me that I don't want solved. I think a
Yeah.
lot of it comes from that.
Interesting. Well, I think it's great. I mean, I'm, it's funny because we all get there in different ways. I'm just, curious to know how you got there. It's interesting. Mine was, being locked in, a metal tube where we were forced to get to really know people deeply because we had nothing else to do. So, but so one of the things that comes out of this and is the idea of resiliency and the idea of resilience in our teams and in making our teams more resilient. So we have a team, we have some sort of external event that happens like a pandemic, a recession, a supply chain shortage, you name it. It's been countless things over the past 5 to 6 years, right, that we've had to deal with as business owners. How would you say that what are the things that we need to do to build resilience in our organization so that we can handle these blows and still come out on top?
Yeah, and it's such a recurring theme these days, right? It feels like it'll never end. It's like one
Mm.
thing after another. And if you're a business owner listening and you're just tired, I get it. It's exhausting, and it's okay to be tired. But I think it's a few things. I think number one, transparent communication with your team really helps. I never I saw organizations that would go through really, really rough times because of things they did or things they didn't do, or just the world, right? And they would send these, don't worry, everything's fine, everything's overblown type communications to their team. And I always wondered, if I was on that team and I sensed that that was just a load of bull, would I be less scared or more scared? And my thought was more scared.
Yeah, it's inauthentic. We've talked about this on the show too before with other guests. Is that inauthentic communication that is like, phony? Like everything's great, don't worry, and that makes you, like you said, more afraid because you don't see your leaders as authentic and giving you their true raw emotions about the moment. They're just saying everything's great. And so it's interesting because one of the things I struggle with is trying to find that balance. And I think I've done it well, but I think it's hard to explain is how do you be transparent, but also don't cause panic, right? In other words, being honest with the situation that's in front of us, but also not, one of the things that leaders have to do is keep hope alive, right? They have to be that beacon of hope. So you can't just say, I don't know what to do. It's terrible. Go home and we'll try to figure it out. It's like, oh shoot, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. So is there a balance between being authentic and then being too authentic that where there's panic?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, that's more timing than authenticity, right?
Okay.
So if a problem hits my desk and it's a problem and I don't know what to do, I have a choice. I can send that company-wide communication letting them know that we have this problem and I don't know what to do. Or I can brainstorm on it, meet with, I call them my brain trust, kind of the handful of people that I know I can bring things where I'm like, I got no freaking clue.
Yeah.
And we'll figure it out. And then I can send that communication. I don't sit on it for weeks or months. If we don't have a finalized plan, but we got a little bit of a plan, so you can communicate the problem. And again, they don't want you to fix their problems, but they do want you to fix your problems. Your team absolutely wants you to fix your problems. I promise you. And if they think it's your problem, even if it's theirs, they want you to fix it, right? So it helps to come in with a solution That's not the same thing as trying to fix Jane's sick mother issue. That is saying, I, as the leader, see this problem in my company. I want to communicate with you that this is the problem, even if it's an outside source, a recession, whatever. And I want to let you know either here is my well thought out plan, or here is where we're headed. And here is how we intend to get the plan together. Right. We had this come up recently. Our software that basically operates our entire firm just started to suck. There's no other way to say it. I mean, we could guess a million different issues. And the communication I sent out was essentially, look, we know that you were seeing unprecedented downtime. We know that you were not getting access to important things when it matters most. We know this. And I don't work for them, so I can't fix it for you. But here are the conversations we are having. Here are the people we're communicating with. Here's what we're being told. We don't know what the answer is, but here's the next step for us. And I will say and I don't take credit for that being a genius thing. I don't think it was. It was just being authentic, but providing what we could. And there was no answer. At the end of that email, there was no, so everything's going to be great, right?
Yeah,
it was, I don't know what it will take to fix these problems, but I promise you, we will continue down this path and we will continue to look for new ways to fix the problems. And I mean, I got a text message from one of our staff members who said, look, I know this other vendor. I have a friend that works for this other vendor and they might be able to fix our problem. Would you be interested in talking? Of course, right? So even letting them know I didn't have the answers without necessarily soliciting them to fix the problem caused, we got a ton of supportive messages. And then we got a couple of staff members that were like, we would love to help. We would love to fix this.
Yeah. I love that. I love the idea of taking time at least to sketch out an initial idea or plan, because if you just say, throw your hands up and say, we've got this disaster and I don't know what to do. And they're like, whoa, I give you an example. We had a major piece of bad news in our company. It happened on a Friday and I had a choice. I could tell my employees before they went home, but I didn't. I sat on it and I said, I've got 3 days to sort of process it myself and see what the next steps would be. And I spent all weekend developing a plan to kind of, at least a preliminary sketch of a plan to move forward. And it was, so we had a meeting that Tuesday morning and it was like, all right, here's a piece of bad news. And then I let the team sort of absorb that, because you can see the reactions in the room and what have you. And it's like, all right, here's a way forward that I've been working on. And I think it was better than just throwing that piece of news out there without actually having that, and then we're going to do this type of thing. So I think I always talk, a lot about, my time in the Navy when the storms were heavy or there was something bad happening with the ship. I remember we all would just look at the captain, like, does he have this? Does he know what he's doing? And I know my employees do the same thing. They're like, does John have this, right? Does he understand what's going on? Can we trust him to fix it? And so I like that what you're talking about is have a plan, or at least some semblance of a plan that you can talk about. And again, what you said is important, is that they may have ideas that can help the plan, even if you don't have it all fleshed out yet.
And John, how did you feel going into that meeting Tuesday morning? Where were you at emotionally, having spent that weekend, letting that sink in, coming up with a plan? It's tempting to say confident, but how'd you feel?
So I got a chance to, and that's what I told my employees too, is I said, I had a chance to absorb that bad news, and I had 3 days to absorb it. And then I was excited about our plan going forward, like the new direction we were going to go. So I was already excited for that meeting. Right. Mm-hmm. But I knew when I told them the bad news, I'm like, you got to go get through that quickly because I got some good news. So it was one of those things, like, I wanted them to go through 3 days of grieving that I already went through. So, but I knew they needed time to absorb that piece of news, but I was excited to get into the next phase. So
I just have to guess. I mean, and it's only a guess, that the buy-in from them must have been very high though, after processing, because, again, what you said, you look at the captain and everyone looks at the leader to see, does the leader have this? But you brought them a solution and exciting news, and you were genuinely excited about it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
were genuinely upset about the bad news, but you were genuinely excited about it. It wasn't fake. Oh, like when you ask people how's business, they're like, oh, we're crushing it. You're not crushing it. You might be making a lot of money, you might be accomplishing goals, but how's business? What's
Yeah.
challenging for you? And it could be something like I had a business owner the other day because I try to go to these retreats and stuff to talk to them, because it's better for me, frankly, once or twice a year. And I said, how's business? And he goes, I'm unhappy. So, whoa.
Mm.
I said, why are you unhappy? He's like, I just can't get out of this rut, And I said, have you asked for help? And when your team senses that your leader is unhappy, scared, whatever, they pick up
Yeah.
on that. But they also pick up on the inauthenticity. We started
Yeah.
talking about it, and he's been pretending to be happy with his
Yeah.
team. And he's had record resignations over the last 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you too. You made a commitment to your employees during this tough time. Now that so what has that done for your team as you have grown now and you've made a bigger team and you've had to rely on these employees to help, because this is was your core group that has led you to growth. What's that been like? How did that sacrifice that you made during COVID, how did that pan out for you in terms of your employee morale? Whether you've had good retention. I mean, I'm just curious to know because I'd like to hear that we made a sacrifice and everything went great, but I'm just kind of curious to know what the impact was for you and the organization and the morale.
Yeah, the punchline on all these things is it doesn't always go great, right? So, we kept all of these team members and one team member resigned. She ultimately, when it was time to come back, she decided she preferred being home. And it wasn't that we wouldn't let her work from home. It's that she preferred not having as much work to do. That's okay.
Yeah.
People reacted very emotionally. Other team members felt betrayed. It's really hard as a leader because you want to create this environment where everyone works together and, they care for each other, but they care about the mission. And then when someone doesn't, they will take it personally and you have to get them out of that rut very quickly. Okay, the right people are here. The people that are supposed to be here are here. We had to watch out with that core team because that core team was so much more bonded than new people. So you had to make sure that they were welcoming and opening and, working. That took a lot of work on my part to make sure that I was being as welcoming and opening to new people as these other people that I'd managed to bond very, very carefully with. But I'll tell you, as a team, they pick it up. We've had people resign. We've had people, we've had to let people go, and that sucks. And it's hard, but they pick up on, it doesn't change the culture if you stay consistent with the empathy driven like leadership. Because we let that person go because they weren't the right person for us. They were wasting our time by being here and we were wasting their time.
Yes.
By keeping them from moving forward in life because there was never going to be a future here. And I'll tell you, the invested team members see that and they appreciate it because they know that if we ever reach a place where I don't think it makes sense for them to be here, we will have that conversation.
Yeah. They know that. I mean, in fact, they know and they see you're in action. They're like, this person doesn't fit, or why aren't you taking action? And then you get into, then the employees don't trust you because they see you not taking action. And I think you're right. I mean, I often say that employees can be like puzzle pieces that somehow don't fit in our puzzle. They'll fit perfectly in someone else's puzzle. They just don't fit in our puzzle at the moment. And it doesn't mean they're bad people, or it doesn't mean they're incompetent or not untalented. They're not a natural fit for what we're trying to do. And I think it's best to let people find their puzzle that they fit into better. And I think that's what I'm always looking to do. But one of the things you said is interesting, and I talk about this too, and I've had some really tough times in the military. I've had tough times in my corporate life. And I noticed that when I go through tough times with the team, we really do bond. We really do get close and you build that core. And then, like you said, as you grow your business, now you've got this group of people that have suffered together, right? And and now there's these new people coming along. And how do there's this little clique over here of the people that suffered during COVID together. And like you said, you have to be careful about making sure that you integrate both sides of it, so you don't have like two teams or two distinct cultures.
No, and how can you not worry about that when you're watching it come? happen, right? I mean, I hate it. It's one of the hardest things. I haven't found the answer, quote unquote, because there is no answer. I mean, people are complicated and society is complicated. And what you have is you almost have like this subset within the society of your business where these people are like, some people call them the OGs or whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
and they're not always the most welcoming. But if you lead with empathy and you show that you genuinely care, it is interesting. They start to care for each other. We just had an employee, very, very sweet young lady, and an attorney was departing. And this happens sometimes. But the attorney decided, in my opinion, to depart in a way that was not good. It wasn't supportive. It wasn't supportive of the people, of her assigned staff member, because we kind of have like these teams that people work in, right? I didn't like that. It didn't make me feel good. On her way out, her way of dealing with that was to be, you could call it arguably verbally abusive towards that staff member, right? So we come in, meet with her. What's going on? Talk to me. And I'm talking about the staff member now. We coach her through, we get her through it. We explain to her that she's important to us and she's a valued member of our team and we care, right? And what happens? Every other new staff member comes to her to offer their help. That doesn't make me feel good because where are the original people, right? And suddenly the original people come around and they're like, yep, that's what it's like here. What can I do for you? Mm-hmm. And that's what you need to use. Your long-standing team members need to confirm the culture to your new team members, and then they'll start to work together.
Love that. I can't add anything to that. That's fantastic. Galen, this has been fantastic. What final message would you like to leave with our listeners?
Just listen. Just listen. If it's hard to do, because it is, then listen, then spend some time listening to yourself, talk to yourself and then ask yourself, how do I really feel about that? I promise you, if you listen to your employees, if you listen to your team, if you listen to your customers and you actually hear what they're telling you and how they feel, you will have much better relationships with everyone.
Man, I can't add anything. That's so fantastic. Listeners, as you're listening into it, I talk about a lot about this podcast is about building a world with better bosses. Galen's one of those better bosses, and I hope that you take these lessons that he's learned and that you apply them in your business, in your department, and in the areas that you have responsibility for. People are very important, but empathy is a big part of how we deal with people. So a lot of really good lessons in this. Galen, how can listeners find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, our website is insuranceclaimhq.com. We're on all the different social medias under Insurance Claim HQ, and you can feel free to reach out to us on there. Look, if you call us, someone answers 24/7. And if you're trying to get me a message, I will get it and I will definitely get back to you.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to put links in the show notes. So check out Galen's company. Reach out to him if you've got some questions, if you want to learn what it means to be an empathetic leader, because clearly he's doing it and having a lot of success doing it. Guess what? You can take care of your people and your business. It can happen. It's real. So, and Galen is a great example of it. Galen, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your story with our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me, John.
Thanks again. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.